Oh, yeah, we got to start. Okay, if you can hear me, clap once. That's enough. We got to start. Okay. So, first things first. Do these things belong to anybody? A hat that says, "We miss you, Bubba," and a glove. Okay. "We miss you, Bubba," hat and a glove. If these are yours, let me know later. All right. So, welcome back to Confirmation. It's been a few weeks since we've gotten together to talk about this stuff because we had the fun night, we had Thanksgiving, and now we're back. So it's been like 3 weeks since we actually talked about confirmation stuff. What in the world did we talk about last time we were here? Does anybody remember? No. Okay. Honest answer. I like that. Well, back here. You ran around the gym. Yes, that was fun night. How about the week before fun night? Before we did the running around the gym when we were talking about Bible stuff. Let's back it up. Let's take it more basic. What are we studying this year? Okay, we got lots of hands. Yes. The Old Testament. Very good. And what book have we been studying out of for the first number of weeks that we've had here? Yes, Lexi. Genesis, which means the beginning. Yes, Genesis means the beginning. So, we've talked about a lot of different people, a lot of different stories. The last story that we talked about involved a couple of people, Sarah and Abraham. Who can tell me who Sarah and Abraham were and what their deal was? Yes, sir. Keenan. Old people who couldn't have children. That is absolutely accurate. Yes, back here. They waited for a long time until they were like 100 and then finally had a kid, right? And God had asked them to do something before all that. Do you remember what God had asked them to do? Yes, Livia. To go somewhere, yes. Did they know the place where they were going? No, they did not. It was entirely new to them. And so this was them trusting God, right? And God made a promise to them, and we had a special word for that promise. Does anyone remember what that special promise word was that we talk about in church? Yes, sir. What was that? Loud, loud, loud. Never mind. Okay, it's all good. Anybody remember the special promise word? Yes. Covenant. Yes, it is a covenant. That is the covenant promise. And so God made a covenant with Sarah and Abraham that their offspring would, what was the words that he used? Outnumber the stars in the sky and outnumber the grains of sand in the deserts, all these fun things. So this is the promise that God makes to Abraham and Sarah. Did the promise come true? Yes, it did, right? We talked about the 3 different Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, all tracing roots back to Abraham, people who consider Abraham to be the father not only of their people, but of their faith, number millions upon billions of people in this world today, and will continue to into the future. So this was one of the promises, one of the covenants that God made was with Sarah and Abraham. Now tonight, we are going to be sticking in the book of Genesis for one more week, because we're going to be talking about this same family. We're not going to be talking about Sarah and Abraham. We're actually not even going to be talking about their son that much. Does anyone remember what their son's name was? Yes. Close. Not Isaiah, but Isaac. Yes, very good, Piper. So Isaac was the son of Sarah and Abraham, and Isaac ended up having kids of his own. He had a couple kids named Jacob and Esau. Have you guys ever heard of Jacob and Esau before? Some yeses, some shaking heads, some blank stares. Can anyone tell me anything about Jacob and Esau that you know? Do you know anything about Jacob and Esau? Perfect! You don't know anything about Jacob and Esau. That is a wonderful opportunity for us to learn about Jacob and Esau. So, why don't we roll the video and we can kind of get an idea of who Jacob and Esau were.
God's story. Jacob and Esau. So part of God's story is about twin brothers, and it begins like this. Once, there were twins named Jacob and Esau, and they didn't get along. They actually started fighting before they were born. Then during birth, Esau came out first, but Jacob was holding on to his heel. That's not normal, and they even look different. The Bible says Esau's body was covered in so much red hair, it was almost like he had clothes on. Jacob's skin was smooth. Well, they got even more different as they grew up. Esau hunted animals and spent time outside. Their dad, Isaac, was a big meat eater, so Esau was his favorite. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet guy who liked to stay indoors. Their mom, Rebekah, liked Jacob the best. The Bible doesn't talk much about Jacob and Esau as kids, but we do know Esau was lucky to be the oldest because he had what's called a birthright. That meant Esau would be in charge of their family, including all their money, land, and stuff. Jacob would probably have to work for his brother Esau, and their dad Isaac would give Esau a blessing, which means Isaac would ask God to take care of his oldest son Esau in an extra special way. Well, you probably think Esau was pretty excited about this, but he wasn't. In fact, one day he gave it up. He'd just returned from a hunting trip. Since he was out killing animals all day, he didn't have time to eat. He came home starving. Jacob was making stew, so Esau said, "Quick, give me some of that stew. I'm very hungry." Now, Jacob was a little sneaky, so he didn't just share the stew with his hungry brother, which would have been nice. Instead, he said, "First, sell me your birthright." And guess what? Esau said yes. It's a little like paying $1 million for a bowl of mushy soup. We don't know why Esau did that, but the Bible says he didn't care about the birthright. But later, when Isaac was really old and about to die, he wanted to ask God to take special care of his firstborn Esau. So he told Esau to go hunting and make him some tasty food, maybe for the last time. Now, Esau wanted the birthright, so he left right away to hunt. Meanwhile, Rebekah had heard Isaac and Esau talking, and remember, Jacob was her favorite. She wanted him to get the blessing, so she did something really sneaky. She told Jacob, "I will prepare tasty food for your father. You take it to your father to eat. Then he'll give you his blessing before he dies." See, Isaac was blind. She was telling Jacob to pretend he was Esau. But there was a slight problem with her plan. First off, Esau was hairy, so if Isaac touched Jacob's smooth skin, he would know the truth. The Bible says Esau had a certain smell too, which might be a polite way of saying he stunk. I mean, imagine how smelly a guy would be if he was always sweating and getting dead animal blood stuck on his clothes and matted in his hairy skin. And this was before deodorant. So even though Isaac was blind, he might smell Jacob or touch his smooth arm and know the truth. Well, Rebekah was sneaky like Jacob. She told Jacob to put sheepskin on his arms and wear some of Esau's smelly clothes. Now Isaac would never know. And even though Isaac wondered why the voice sounded like Jacob, guess what? The trick worked. Jacob got the blessing. Now Esau would have to work for him. As you might imagine, Esau was furious. In fact, Rebekah had to help Jacob run away so Esau wouldn't kill him. What's really crazy about this story is Jacob messed up big time, but he really did get God's blessing. Esau even forgave him later. We don't know why God let this happen, but the truth is we all mess up sometimes, and God still wants us to be part of his story. And that's the story of Jacob and Esau. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Jacob and Esau were twins. They were different. Jacob tricked Esau. Esau sold his birthright for stew. Later, Esau wanted his blessing. Rebekah helped Jacob trick his dad Isaac. Jacob got Esau's blessing. Esau was furious. Jacob ran away, but God still blessed him. And that's a part of God's story.
All right. Uh-oh, I'm still loading slides. There we go. So, this is the story of Jacob and Esau. So, let's talk a little bit about what all happened. Who are Jacob and Esau? Remind me. Yes, ma'am. Sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Yes, very good, Piper. Sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Yes, back here. Who else are Jacob and Esau? Twins, that is right. They are twins. Now, were these twins, now here's a question. They're twins, but Esau gets the oldest son blessing. How could one of the twins get the blessing for being the oldest son? Aren't they the same age? How does that work? Did you catch the beginning part? Yeah. He came out first. In fact, you saw the little thing of like Jacob hanging off him. The Bible says that Jacob was holding his heel as they came out, which is a really kind of strange thing. But yeah, they're twins. Esau was born like a minute ahead of Jacob. And so he gets this thing called a birthright. Did you catch what the birthright was? What that means? Yes, ma'am. Money, sometimes it means money, yeah. Blessing, it can mean blessing, Birthright, yes. And animals, all the stuff of the family, right? This was the tradition in these times and in this culture, was that when the eldest son was born, that was the person who would kind of inherit all the stuff of the family, as well as the responsibility for leading the family after their father was gone. And so that was technically, in this case, Esau, which meant that after Isaac was dead, not only would he get all the family's stuff, but he would be the one who would get to make all the decisions. He'd be the one that would be able to lead where the family was going to go, all this stuff. Plus, he would get the special blessing from Isaac, praying that God would care for him in a really special way. Now, was that actually what happened? Did Esau end up getting the blessing? No. How did he end up not getting the blessing? Yeah. No? Right here? Yeah, Jacob and his mom, Rebekah, tricked Isaac, their dad, into thinking that Jacob was Esau because he was really old and blind and couldn't really tell what was going on. Though Jacob had actually been given the ability to get the birthright a lot time before that, right? Remember the whole deal with the stew, that Esau was really hungry, and so he asked for some of Jacob's stew, and Jacob said, if you let me get the birthright, you could have some of my stew, and Esau was like, sure, which is kind of dumb, but he did it, right? And so, technically speaking, it should have been Jacob's anyway, but then they lied to get it. It was this whole big messed up thing. So, was Esau okay with that, even though he had given it away? He was not. In fact, he tries to kill his brother, his twin brother Jacob, for a very long time. In fact, the little video didn't talk about this, but Jacob ends up having to leave the country for 20 years. For 20 years, he is out and not with the rest of his family. He's not with his home. He's not with his friends, because his older brother, is trying to murder him for taking this birthright. It's really kind of a strange and sort of messed up story, right? Because there really aren't any good guys in this story, if you really think about it, right? Isaac is playing favorites to give his older son the blessing, and he's kind of the best of all of them. Esau is trying to murder his brother, which isn't great, after going back on the deal that he gave to his younger brother the birthright. Jacob himself is kind of really being sneaky about it and lying to his dad. Rebekah's trying to help Jacob lie to her husband. It's kind of a messed up situation, right? No one comes out of this looking that great. And yet, does God still give the blessing to Jacob? He does. Yeah, he does give the blessing to Jacob. And it's kind of interesting. These stories of these people way back when, even Jacob and Esau, very old Bible stories, kind of teach us a little bit about human families, right? Because this was a really dysfunctional family, and that still is something that happens today, doesn't it? Has anyone ever had like a family feud as part of their family story, part of their family history? Has that ever happened where people in your family have like fought with each other and not wanted to talk for a super long time? Yeah? Happened to my family. When I was about 10 years old, there was a thing that happened between my grandma and my aunt, where it was a really dumb thing, where I don't even know the whole story, but somebody cooked something that the other person didn't like the smell of, and they had to close a door. It was stupid. But it ended up, what happened was that I didn't get to see my aunt or my uncle or my cousins for like 10 years after that, because they were fighting with my grandma. It was this whole big family feud. It was this brokenness, this sin. And this story kind of says, yeah, this is almost a universal human experience that people have. No one is perfect. No family is going to be completely free of all of these things. And yet, God is still faithful to us, right? Now, do you think this is the end of the story of Jacob and Esau? No, it is not. As I mentioned, they were feuding for like 20 years, but about 20 years, well, exactly 20 years later, Jacob decides that he wants to reconcile. He wants to get back together with his brother Esau, come to terms, make peace, find some way to be family again. And so he talks to his wife. He's already married by this time. It has been for a long time. He says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make things right with my brother. So he sends a messenger off to Esau, off in his home country, and says, I'm coming back. I want to make peace with you. Let's get together and have a conversation. Well, he hears back from the messenger that Esau is coming to meet him, but he's coming with like 500 soldiers. So it's like not clear that this is going to be a real peaceful homecoming. But Jacob is still wanting to do this. And so he says to his family, he says to his wife, you guys stay here. I'm going to go. And whatever happens, happens, but I'm going to go and meet with my brother Esau. So he goes and he gets ready to meet with his brother. And the night before he's going to meet with Esau, something really strange happens. He has this encounter with this man who shows up and ends up wrestling with him all night long. They're like struggling. This guy's like attacked him, and he's like, they're rolling around in the dirt. And finally, they get to the point where the sun is coming up, and the man says, let me go. We got to stop this. Whatever is happening, I got to go because the sun's coming up. And Jacob says, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me, which is kind of a strange thing to say to some random person that shows up and wrestles with you, right? And the guy says, okay, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to bless you. You will be known from here on forward not as Jacob, but as Israel. He gives him a different name. Because you have striven, you have wrestled not only with people, but with God. Because in this story, the person who came and was wrestling with him was actually God. Something this kind of like this symbol for Jacob struggling with his inner demons or for how he's going to understand God and his relationship with people. And yet that next day, he goes and meets with Esau, now named Israel, and is reconciled with his brother. And out of this relationship that gets restored comes that initial covenant that Abraham and Sarah had with Isaac, or with God, of all of those descendants, including Jesus, coming through the 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel that we're going to get into a bit next week. So that's kind of a long piece of these people, of Jacob, who becomes Israel with his brother Esau and Rebekah and Isaac and all of these people. Why do you think these stories are part of the Bible? If we're to ask the Martin Luther's question, what does this mean? What are we supposed to get out of the story of Jacob and his brother and all of these weird things that happen to them? Any ideas? Yes, ma'am. Don't fight with your family. Always a good lesson to take. 100%. Yet, even when we do fight with our family, and bad things happen, and our families aren't perfect, and our relationships aren't perfect, does God, yes, to be forgiven. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, to be reconciled. We have Jacob and Esau reconciling with one another. Yes, Olivia? I love that. Don't take 10 years to forgive someone. Absolutely a great idea. Yes, 100%. All of these things kind of come together to talk about why this might be in our Bibles, and also to remind us that God doesn't use perfect people to accomplish his promises, right? None of the people in this story, or really any of the stories that we read in the Bible other than Jesus, are perfect people. And yet God does great things through them. So just like them, we too are not perfect. Our families aren't perfect. Our friend groups aren't perfect. Yet God can do great things through us as well. Which kind of brings us to our memory verse for tonight, still in the book of Genesis. We'll get into the next book next time around. This is God talking with Jacob and saying, know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. This is a continuation of that covenant, right? That promise that God made to Abraham and Sarah continued on through Jacob, and we're going to find out more about how that gets brought into fulfillment next week through the sons of Jacob. Now, let's see what time. I want to make sure I got enough time for you guys to get into your small groups here. Oh gosh, okay, we're going to hit the vocab words really quick here. So we talked about birthright. Who can tell me what a birthright is in this context? Yes, ma'am. Something that you're privileged to get, yeah, as part of like your status, right? And in this particular case, it has to do with the inheritance of the firstborn son, particularly in the case of Jacob and Esau, right? So birthright is what you get for being born in a certain situation, but in this case, it's particular to the inheritance of the firstborn son. What about Israel? Yes, ma'am. It's Jacob's new name after he wrestles with God. That's right. And so it's also a name for the Jewish people because the Jewish people trace their ancestry to Jacob, who becomes Israel, and also Abraham and Sarah and all these people. So Israel is a name in Scripture that is given not only to Jacob, but also to his descendants as well, including Jesus, who comes through this line as a rescuer to all of us. All right, so that's your vocab words. That is your memory verse. You have some time to go and be in your small groups. So let's start with our 6th grade groups. You guys can go to your spots.